It's now 4:30. I will call the meeting of the Waxahachie Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. Please let the record show that all 7 trustees are in attendance. This meeting has been duly called and notice of the meeting has been duly posted for time and manner required by law. First item on our agenda will be our board workshop, 2022-2023 budget workshop. Mr. Calden, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, board and Dr. Hollingsworth. We're going to have our third in a series of 3 budget workshops. You remember we started way back in the spring talking about priorities, and then we kind of redefined those a little bit and made sure we were all on the same page back in May. And so this will be the culmination of budget workshop that goes along with the budget book that was passed out at the last meeting or meeting before last on the 18th of July. Just real quick, here's our agenda. We're going to look at the the identified priorities that we went through as part of making the budget. We'll discuss some highlights in each of the funds. As a reminder, we're looking at general fund, debt service, and child nutrition fund today. Those are the 3 legally required to be adopted before the fiscal year starts, which will be September 1. We're also going to look at the proposed budgets, again, for those 3 funds. We will also look at property valuations and tax rates. That's one of the required elements for our first report. And then we will talk about the next steps for budget adoption, which at this point is a really short list. So our identified priorities, identified budget priorities. You remember back when we had our first workshop over at the Teaching, Learning, and Innovation Department in the big boardroom. We went over the tier 1, 2, and 3 priorities. And we had determined that we were looking at a way to retain staff. We were looking at a way to let our staff work more collaboratively together by getting that high school bell schedule back to a 6 of 8. And then we were also looking at starting to replenish our fund balance to make sure that that we had the funds available to weather a storm when there's one on the horizon. Just kind of recap something that we talked about previously, and that was our enrollment expectations. This is straight out of the demographics report. So next year, the demographer is estimating about 11,000 students for Waxahachie ISD. That's a pretty significant increase. It's about a 9.4% student increase from the 10,098 students, which was really in line. We ended the school year at about 10,200, so it's not terribly out of place. These numbers, generically speaking, are really more of that August snapshot date. The October snapshot date. So we were still in the ballpark, 21-22 with demographic estimates. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But the number on the far right should scare you a little bit, the 2030-132 number. It's about 17,800 students. We're working on plans to make sure that we can meet those student needs when they're here and make sure that we're also fiscally sound in the process. Okay, so, well, that's a little concerning. It didn't. The purpose of this slide, so I had 2 presentations going at the same time. I had one presentation that was wholly devoted to budget workshop, and then I tried to load them all into the board presentation. So this is telling me right now that a couple of them didn't make it over. So we'll start with the first one that did not make it over. Just kind of a recap of what we were just talking about. Expected student increase about 800, which is 9.4%. As you'll see here in just a minute, we are expecting our local general fund revenues to go up about 14%, but we're expecting our state revenues to decrease 14.5%. So you see a little bit of an inverse relationship now between local revenues and state revenues. That hasn't always been the case. That is one of the byproducts of House Bill 3 and the revenue compression. Overall, we're expecting general fund revenue to increase 1.4%. So when we talk about we're allowed to keep property value revenue of 2.5% per year. So the growth in property values year over year at 2.5%, we're seeing overall general fund revenue this year expected to increase about 1.5%. Some of that is due to reducing some budgets in other local fund areas like tuition. We know that we're going to be getting fewer and fewer students from other districts through a tuition model. Just because we don't have as much space, say in CTE, to keep accepting those students. We also are reducing it a little bit for investment earnings. While we have funds on deposit and we have interest rates that are going up around us. That's not one of those budget makers. We're not out there trying to hit our interest rate exactly on target and then plan people on the backside of that. So that would be a really bad scenario if we missed it.
Ryan, I just want to emphasize and underscore for the public and also for the trustees, you know, those numbers again, that's huge. So we realize we're recognizing and realizing local revenue increases of 14.1%?
Yes, sir, 14.14.
14.14%. The state is, we're projecting will reduce our state aid by 14.5%. So that's the whole story. So when people say these property taxes and y'all are just awash in cash, that is just not the case because they reduce our state aid proportionately.
It's a good point, and we'll touch on that here in a couple more slides. We're going to go rather quickly over the budget highlights. So in an effort to build a collaborative culture through professional learning communities, we asked you, the trustees, to approve 13.5 positions so that we could return our secondary campuses to teaching 6 of 8 classes. They will have a devoted in their scheduled time to get together as a professional learning community to build their capacities together. We also asked for and you approved 8.5 FTEs to address student enrollment growth. As we get a little bit closer to, I want to call it opening day, but that's not really it. That's more of a baseball term. As we get closer to that first day of school, we're realizing that might have been a little skinny. We may be looking at utilizing those contingency positions that we asked you to approve as well. And so that's a good thing. We're excited that we're looking at student growth, but it also, you know, will cause us to either use up our contingencies and or even exceed our contingencies as we go forward. Another priority was honoring and supporting all staff who positively impact the lives of our students. So currently, all staff written into the budget are to receive a minimum of 1.5% as a salary increase. We also have looked at targeted increases, so greater level increases for those staff who are behind their peers on the pay scales. So we are cognizant of trying to make sure that our staff are not feeling left behind. We also are looking at adjustments to remain competitive with our local market. So teachers, we're looking at moving the starting pay to $54,000. It's currently $52,500, I believe. And that will put us more in line with the market around us. All teachers will see a minimum of $1,100 pay increase from their current 2021-2022 salary. Again, there will be some targeted increases for those with less experience on the scale because our analysis tells us that they are not we are not as competitive at those early pay rates with the DFW market. We do really well at 20, 25, and 30. We don't do so hot at 0, 5, and 10. And then a minimum 3% increase for auxiliary and paraprofessional staff. We also talked about a minimum starting pay for auxiliary of $12 an hour. I know our HR department is busy working on getting that into the scales, and I believe that is in the scales that will be presented for your approval. So we will have our auxiliary minimally starting at $12 an hour for the 22-23 school year. And then our balanced scorecard, area 4, is all about financial integrity. And so one of the key themes is ensuring that we have funds available to complete the tasks that we've been assigned. So we did ask for, or we are proposing within next year's budget, a $50,000 increase in each the maintenance department, transportation department, and athletics departments, so $150,000 in total to address the inflationary cost pressures that they're feeling. So with gas originally and diesel, when we originally wrote last year's budget, those have almost gone up threefold, and so the transportation department did not get a supplemental allocation last year, so we are looking to give them another $50,000 to help with the cost of buses and the cost of fuel. Same general thing with maintenance. All the costs and supplies are going way up. In athletics, they're feeling the same pressures as well as we go through and they see the supplies and materials and transporting students to away games. So with that, we'll get into the specific proposed budgets for next year. Again, we're looking at general fund, debt service, and child nutrition fund at this point. In the general fund specific, we're looking at local revenue of $72 million next year. That's about a 66% increase from local budgeted revenues for the current year. That's about a, what are we doing here? How is it at 65% and, no. Sorry, 66%, local revenues make up 66% of the total revenues of the general fund, which is about a 14.14% increase over the current fiscal year that we're in. State revenues next year are expected to be about $35.1 million. That is about 32% of general fund revenues. It's a little bit of a shift from when House Bill 3 came out. We were a lot closer to 50-50 between local revenue and state revenue, and that is crept up to 2/3 and 1/3 at this point. So it is a 14.57% reduction in budgeted state revenues for next year, which, as Dr. Hollingsworth mentioned earlier, really does not play against your expectations with an increasing student enrollment to see state revenue going down by such a large amount. Federal revenues are SHAR's reimbursement program. That's generally a flat budget. I believe last year was about $1.6 million that we budgeted. This year we upped it to $2 million only because we've had a couple of years of SHAR's revenues being over $2 million. So we felt it was conservative enough to go ahead and increase that up. It makes up less than 2% of the total budget, and it's up about half of 1%. Overall, general fund revenues are expected to be $109,127,528, or a 1.54% increase in revenue from the current year. General fund expenditures, as you would expect, salaries and benefits lead the way, a little bit over 85%. Still would like to see that number come down a little bit, but we do know that that is a little bit inflated at this point as we go through open enrollment. We don't know exactly how many of our staff are going to take our health insurance, which could cause that number to reduce as we go. Contracted services are second biggest category at 5.24% of the budget, or $5.7 million. Supplies about $4.3 million, or just about 4% of the budget, and then other expenditures at $3.1 million, or a hair under 3% of the total expenditure budget. Capital outlay you'll see at $1.2 million. That is a decrease of about 2.6% from the current year. As you know, we bought about 174 acres of land just south of Dunaway this year, and that would have been a big capital expenditure that we're not preparing to budget for next year. So it's not overly surprising that that's coming down, but that should give us some funds to continue to maintain and improve our campuses as we go. And all you're seeing expenditure budget of $109,127,528. So it is a balanced budget that is being proposed for next year, and a 1% decrease in overall expenditures in the general fund going into next year. Debt service fund, expected revenue is $29 million. Expected expenditures of $16.3 million. That does create a sizable surplus of about $12.5 million. The reason for the surplus is to go in and look at 2011, 2013, and 2014 bond issues and start repaying those in advance of their call dates. Go ahead and set aside the funds to fully repay those so that we can reduce our overall debt as a district. It's one way that we can work better with resources that we have to get our district in better financial footing on that debt service side. This action would reduce debt service requirements in future fiscal years, thereby lowering the INS portion of the tax rate and possibly avoiding future interest cost to the taxpayers. And then in the Child Nutrition Fund, we are expecting about a 16% decrease in revenue and expenditures in the Child Nutrition Fund. It is balanced, but we are expecting fewer expenditures because we expect fewer participants with us this year, because we are going back to the school breakfast program and the National School Lunch Program, which require the applications from families for their child to qualify for the free meals or reduced meals. And so we are putting a major emphasis on getting this word out to all of our parents. We're talking about it tonight. We talked about it at Operation First Day of School. We're going to continue talking about it at all of our back-to-school activities on our campuses. We can't get the word out enough that the universal free meals for all students has gone away. And that was not our decision. That was one that was made at the federal level, but we were playing by the rules, and we're trying to get people to fill out those applications. All right, so then we're on to property values and tax rates. This year, our certified freeze-adjusted taxable values were last year's freeze-adjusted taxable values were $5.2 billion. That's a $1.5 billion increase, or right at 29.5%. But this does take into account the increase in the exemption from $25,000 to $40,000 for a homestead. So that it is a really sizable increase, and that is a lot due to growth, and a lot of it is due to property valuations that are required to be done at fair market value. So when we talk about the proposed tax rate for next year, we're looking at a decrease in the general fund from 96.03 cents to 94.29 cents, or a decrease of almost 2 cents, or almost 2% in the M&O rate. The INS rate, we're proposing to keep the same at 38.39 cents for $100 valuation. Total tax rate of $1.3268 for next year, and that's down from $1.34.42 in the current year. Show that over a trend, you will see that in 2018-19, our total tax rate was at $1.5539, and we're proposing for next year $1.3268. You're looking at about a 22-cent reduction in that total tax rate over that same period, and that is significantly due to the tax rate compression as approved by the state legislature. So with that, we know that it would have been a lot worse for taxpayers without this tax rate compression if that revenue were still as high as it was back in 18-19, and we were seeing the valuations that we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. Another slide that did not make it, so my apologies, was just going to show you where our INS rate sits amongst the top 25 growing districts in the state. So pure growth in the state. We're the, as of 2020-2021, we were the 5th fastest growing district in the state. Our INS rate, just for comparative sake, is right around the 14th out of those 25. So we have got some pretty big local people or local districts ahead of us. Prosper, Forney, Denton, Wiley, Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, Northwest ISD, all of those districts have a higher INS tax rate than we do. There is one in our area, and that's Frisco ISD, that actually has a lower INS tax rate than us within that top 25% of growth in the state of Texas. So what is that good for? I don't know. I just like making a chart, and unfortunately you didn't get to see it, but it just seemed like something kind of cool to share. Next steps in budget adoption. So we will be having a public hearing at our next meeting on Monday, August 29th at 5 p.m. and it'll be right here in the boardroom at 411 North Gibson Street. We're posting that on the website. We're posting that on lstaxes.com, and it'll also be in the newspaper. So we're soliciting feedback on it after the public hearing. Board will be asked at a minimum to adopt the budget for next fiscal year. The budget has to be adopted so it can be in effect for September 1 for the 2022-2023 school year. At the same meeting, you'll have the opportunity to adopt the tax rate. Traditionally, we have adopted budget and tax rate in the same meeting. That really is up to you at that point. Just some key takeaways. Another slide that unfortunately did not make it. This is where all the brilliance is at. Key takeaways. So general fund revenue, it is projected to increase 1.5% for next year. Our local revenue in the general fund is expected to increase 14.14%. State revenue is expected to decrease 14.51%, which is a little bit of an anomaly with expected student enrollment increase of 9.4%. In years past, you would see that state revenue in concert with expected student growth. Total general fund expenditures are expected to decrease 1%, and in addition to our tax rate decreasing almost 2%, which is, again, a 22.7-cent decrease since the 2018-2019 school year. I know that was a lot of numbers at the end. Thankfully, I believe we talked about all the numbers in a previous slide, too. With that, any questions or comments?
The slide about 5 or 6 slides ago that where revenue and expenditures were,
Yes, sir.
did you account for that, putting money back in the fund balance? And
So, yes, sir. Our projection right now is within the budget, we have about 100,000 that is, I wanted to tell you our safety net. So if we have to hire additional staff, that'll be money that will be taken for, the original purpose of that money is to put money into fund balance. But when we crafted the budget, we made sure we were really, really conservative on student expected enrollment. We're only really going up on expected students about 200 for ADA for the year. Part of that's because we already counted some of them last year. We did not meet last year's ADA, and so we did not want to count them again and say, hey, we're going to have a hard and fast 800 kid increase for this year. So we really only went up about 450 to 500 students on the ADA expectation. So every student in excess of that 450 or 500 is going to be additional revenue that goes right back into fund balance. So that was the plan, to make sure that we had resources that we need, specifically staff that we needed to make sure that our students were educated, but not be so constricted that we did not have a plan going forward. So if we exceed those ADA expectations, which I have confidence right now that we absolutely will, that additional revenue is going to go back into fund balance.
So we weren't able to earmark the $1 million?
We did not earmark it. We did have $1 million in this year's budget that we put towards the purchase of the land. And
Right.
That was
Right.
a one-time deal.
Right.
So if I read this correctly, we're gonna have the increase in student enrollment, decrease in state funding, which turns around, puts it back on our local taxpayers.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just make sure I was reading that correctly.
Yes, sir. No, your local taxpayers are picking up at least 16% of the share that's not theirs. That if we're really thinking about this, the way the system is supposed to work is 50-50 between local and state. And with us, with local revenues expected to be 66%, you can fairly say your local taxpayers are picking up at least 16% of the burden that's not theirs.
Do they give any guidance on where that 14% is going? I mean, is it for property tax relief, or they don't?
There's really not any guidance on where it's going. I can tell you right now, it's part of what the legislature uses to balance their budget. They expect to get money back from school districts. That was more in the recapture system, but they expect with large value growth to have taxpayers picking up a bigger share. So you will see in the next legislative session that their expectations on what their FSP, their foundation school program expenditures are going to be, are not going to be in line with the revenue growth or the property value growth that you're seeing across the state.
Is there a way to tell on those local revenues, on the increase or even as a whole, what percentage of that is new properties hitting the tax rolls, say, versus old properties with tax rate increases?
Yes, sir. With the reports that we get from the appraisal district, we can break that down.
It'd just be interesting to know. It's something we're asking a lot.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that and get you some numbers on it.
And I just want to add, to the question that John asked, you understand too, that the state is projecting an unprecedented surplus. Even though we see this sheet,
They released some scary figures this week.
July was a
Record sales tax.
record, July, 4 billion. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Cullen?
On the expenditures for salaries and, on the expenditures for salaries and benefits, what is more the goal? I know it needs to be lower than 86%. And you said it might go down a little bit. I mean, what is our goal?
If we were really putting the constraints to it, 80% is going to be that low mark floor. Anywhere between 80 and 85% is really where you're going to see majority districts in the state of Texas. There's not really a good and a bad, to be honest. We could keep it at 86.7%. The problem you're going to run into is when you go to do increases, you have that many more people getting the increase, so that amount's going to be smaller. I mean, that's just kind of the long-term effect of it.
Anything else for Mr. Cullen? Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, it is now 4:55. We will convene into closed session according to section 551.001 et sec of the Texas Government Code. and our pledges. Mr. McCutcheon?
Okay, let's pray. Lord, we thank you for today. We thank you for this district and all the employees that are getting ready to go back and help our kids. Please be with the staff, the students, everybody involved, and just hope they have a great year. We ask all these things in your son's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas pledge. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, ladies.
Our vision is to be a district where innovation thrives and growth is limitless.
We value choices because they make us unique and are critical to learning.
We value a collaborative culture that honors and supports all who positively impact the lives of our students.
We value an environment of belonging that respects individual differences and ensures equality for all.
We value relationships that broaden learning experiences and enrich our community.
Okay, next item will be our recognitions. Ms. Bridges, I believe we have a few of those tonight.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Board and Dr. Collinsworth. The first person that I am so excited to recognize this evening is our webmaster, Shelley Murphy. Shelley took on the job of being our webmaster a few years ago and has absolutely flourished. And she recently oversaw our new website design and implementation and did an absolutely beautiful job of it. It's a great representation of our district and really is a lot of times the first impression that people get of our district. So we just wanted to recognize that hard work and tell her how proud we are.
Dr. H., another 1989 graduate, I might add. Class of 89.
And Board, next I'd like to invite Lieutenant Josh Oliver up to do a recognition.
I have some members of the Waxahachie ISD security team here, if you guys could come up to the front. On May 27th, 2022, Waxahachie High School held the graduation ceremonies for their seniors. Following on the heels of the tragedy that occurred in Uvalde, the district made the decision that if someone brought a bag or a purse into the stadium for the event, those bags, every bag, would be searched. We would check them for weapons. The responsibility of this fell on the shoulders of the safety and security team. On one end of the stadium, a table was set up and the dedicated members of this team began their work. As spectators began pouring into the stadium, Reagan Resendez was assisting other officers in their diligent efforts to check these bags when an older female came to the entrance carrying her purse. As she approached the table, Reagan said that it appeared as though she became a little nervous. She set her bag on the table and Reagan said it felt and it sounded as though something heavy, perhaps a gun, hit the table. Reagan said that due to her training and experience, she believed it was a gun in the bag, and as Reagan began to thoroughly check the purse before allowing the female entry, she said the female grabbed the purse and said, "I'm going to go put this in my car." She quickly grabbed the bag, walked back out to the entrance toward her car. Reagan began to follow her with the assistance of Security Officer Rob Rykoff and watched as she sat the bag in her car. They kept an eye on her to make sure that she returned empty-handed. These officers then gave a description of the woman to the other officers working the entrance, where she was checked with a metal detector before she was cleared into the stadium. Later on in the evening, Tim Oldfield and Edward Trey Marsh were assigned to check bags at the visitors entrance on the field level during graduation. As graduation ended and the fireworks show began, the lights of the stadium were shut off. Thousands of individuals flooded onto the field uncontrolled, and despite this, officers Oldfield and Marsh continued to man their posts, knowing that the safety of individuals on that field and in that stadium rested on their shoulders. 4 teenagers were seen running across the parking lot towards the stadium, and they stopped those 4 teenagers, told them to slow down, and then detained the last one in the line that had a backpack. Just because the ceremony was ending did not mean that safety concerns were ending as well. In the midst of the chaos, low light, loud music, and fireworks, they took the bag and began searching it, and buried underneath shoes and clothing, Trey felt something that he thought was the handle of a pistol. He visually confirmed what he thought was in the bag, and immediately the SROs were called over to the area, where they began clearing what they thought were 2 Glock pistols. As they began to examine the weapons and clearing them to make sure that they were safe, they found out that they were in fact airsoft pistols. Neither one of these toys had an orange tip, and they looked very real and very dangerous, even to the trained police officers. There weren't any acts of violence at the 2022 graduation ceremonies, but without the dedicated efforts of the entire safety and security team, this might have been a different story. I don't know what the intent was of the individuals who were stopped by these 4 members of the team. I don't know what could have happened if they would have been allowed into the stadium, but what I do know is there were no acts of violence that night. I do know that nobody was injured because of weapons, and I do know that the students on that field, dressed in their caps and gowns, were able to celebrate their accomplishments in a safe environment. And that safety was guaranteed by the hard work of the safety and security team. So tonight, I want to recognize the actions of these specific officers: Reagan Resendez, Big Rob, Tim Oldfield, and Trey Marsh. We say thank you. Thank you for your tireless work, your dedication, and it does not go unrecognized. I will go off script just a little bit for a second. Reagan has been working with us as a security officer and has done an outstanding job at Wildman Elementary. And she has turned in her resignation, not for bad reasons. She got accepted with the Ellis County Sheriff's Department. So I want to wish her all the luck as she goes forward in her law enforcement career.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the open forum. We do not have anyone signed up to speak, so we will move to item number 7, which is consideration of possible action to approve the hire of the Director of Special Populations. Dr. Hollingsworth?
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just announce to our board and to all who are gathered here today, we're very pleased to have Mrs. Mandy Chapman. She is here tonight as our candidate and our recommendation to be our next Director of Special Populations. Mrs. Chapman brings a wealth of experience to this role. She's coming to us from a neighboring district that will go unnamed in Waxahachie, America, because that's the right thing to do. But we are so glad to welcome her. 26 years of experience as a classroom teacher in special education at all levels, and lots of experience, most recently as the coordinator of special ed. And we are just very, very fortunate to have you join our team. So welcome.
listed as an action item, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 7 as presented.
So, second.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, motion by Mr. Schofield, second by Mr. Rogers. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, next item was, it's listed as an action item under agenda item 8. We do not have to take action on that particular item as it is written on the agenda. So we're going to go on to number 9, which is our public hearing. So tonight, we will be holding a public hearing to discuss Waxahachie ISD becoming a district of innovation. Following the presentation, we will invite the public to approach the podium and provide input on the subject at hand. The public hearing will begin with a presentation by Ms. Lisa Mott, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Learning. Ms. Mott?
Thank you. Good evening, Board and Dr. Hollingsworth. Tonight, we are looking at a District of Innovation plan again for our district. We are familiar with District of Innovation plans. They allow for the district to be exempt from certain sections of the Texas Education Code that inhibit the goals of the district. We first became a District of Innovation during the 2017 and 18 school year. And if you remember then, our original plan had about 5 different exemptions. We really only utilized about 3 of those. We were just trying to encompass everything that we thought we might use. We were utilizing first day of instruction every year. We also were utilizing school day interruptions as well as the teacher appraisal process. Through the 5-year time period, we did add several exemptions. Some of those were just due to things that were going on in the world. In July of 2020, we added the piece about class size and notice of class size, and that was completely related to COVID and online instruction. It was never the intention to go over 22 to 1, but we knew with online classes and everything going on with that, we would need some flexibility there. The certification requirement that was added in 2021 was related to CTE teachers and certifications, trying to bring those industry experts into our classrooms, and we needed a little assistance there with an exemption. And then, of course, related to the health insurance in June of 2021. So those were added to our original plan. The process is pretty simple through the state to become a District of Innovation. We are starting that process this evening with the board resolution and the public hearing. Later in the board meeting on the agenda, we have a chance to appoint a committee. In the past, we have used our DEIC committee to steer the planning of the District of Innovation. And so we will be asking for that again this evening. And then I will work with that committee. At the first meeting of that committee, we will be looking at our current plan that we have in place with the amendments, seeing what worked for the district, getting input about what they would like to see return from that plan and some things that maybe we don't think are such a great idea. Also, I'll be pulling in some plans from other districts that have new ideas, maybe something different that we haven't considered yet, and let the committee consider those options as well. And then we'll be putting together another plan that we will post on our website for 30 days. That committee, the DEIC, will hold a public meeting and a vote. And then if that all goes through with that majority vote of the committee, we'll be bringing the plan back to the board for you all to look at and adopt. And the final step in becoming a District of Innovation, again, is to notify the commissioner of that adoption of a new District of Innovation plan. Any questions that I can answer about the planning process?
Questions, anything, Ms. Mott? Discussion? Okay. Okay, at this time, are there any individuals that would like to speak concerning Waxahachie ISD becoming a District of Innovation? Going once? Twice? Okay, we will now close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Okay, we're going to move into our reports. Report A, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Autry and members of the board. Couple of things I wanted you to be aware of, just our fall professional learning and some of the things that we've already done related to preparation for the new school year. We've trained all of our teacher leaders to be able to facilitate those collaborative team meetings that we do in our PLCs. Our first and second year new to the Profession Academy has begun, and so we'll continue to support our first and second year teachers throughout the year with extra levels of support and mentoring. New to district training took place last week. It covered our core values, our vision, innovative use of technology and instruction, PLC. We talked about MAP assessment, which y'all are very familiar with, and also how we do curriculum and instruction in Waxahachie ISD. Our WHS staff, as they're transitioning to that 6 of 8, we talked about bell-to-bell training for how to use that 90 minutes. We're making a commitment to continuing with that 90-minute block, and so we want to be sure that they're maximizing the instructional use there. And then assessments for student learning with Tim Brown, that actually took place today, and that was continuation of our solution tree training. And then finally, we've had a lot of work that's gone in. Dr. Johnson and the entire teaching, learning, and innovation team has been working on unpacking the TEKS and developing those common formative assessments. And that's something that's specifically done by our WISD teachers, and they're led by our curriculum folks. And so very proud of that work. The other thing I wanted to share with y'all as part of my report is just that continuing work of our long-range planning committee. As y'all saw earlier in our budget workshop that Mr. Calden presented, by the 31-32 school year, so in 9 years from now, we expect more than 17,000 students. And as a result, we have to have a great plan in place in terms of where we're going to house the students that we're going to serve. Meeting number 3 out of 8 will take place on September 7th. We'll resume that work. We'll have an additional 6 meetings throughout the fall. And what I would point out is our focus is on our needs versus wants. When you talk about construction costs these days, and those are just going through the roof for all construction, we know it's really important for us to identify what we need. And then we will present a plan here. The plan is to bring that to y'all for board adoption on December, at our December 2022 meeting. I wanted to point out, and I highlighted that and put it in color because I want to be sure that everybody knows that those LRPC presentations, anybody can find those. We've had 2 meetings so far, and they're both easy to find at our WISD.org website. And then I pulled on the right-hand side, I pulled for you a slide that was directly from our second meeting that we had in April. The job of our committee is to determine a 10-plus year facility plan. Their job is also to help us address every campus and every grade level and how it is that we're going to move forward with our facilities. Make smart decisions about our existing facilities and how we're using our existing facilities, maximizing their use in an effective and efficient way, and then also potential new buildings that we would need to build to meet the needs of 17,000 kids in the next 10 years. The LRPC will make the final recommendation that they will present to y'all in December. But I just wanted to revisit that. It's been a while since we've had that conversation, but we're going to have a lot of additional conversation about it in the coming months. That concludes my presentation, Mr. President.
Questions for Dr. Hollingsworth?
Sorry, I'm jumping back to the 6 of 8. Ms. Harris, will the 6 of 8 in any way help with our passing period, take pressure off of those? The
And the 6 and 8 will not really help with passing periods. The passing periods will be the same. We do have 6-minute passing periods. And I'll be honest with you, it's like any other high school. Every high school has those areas where traffic kind of bogs down. But we really have really good traffic flow right now at Waxahachie High School. We didn't see a lot of issues last year. One area that the year before had created some congestion, we had maintenance come in and remove some doors, and we were able to fix that problem. So we really didn't have a lot of congestion in the hallways. It flowed pretty steadily.
I didn't mean to catch you off guard, but I was wondering if that was hopefully a side effect of the 6 of 8, maybe? How much? Okay.
We don't have any problems.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Item B, semi-annual Sr3 informational report. Mr. Calden?
Thanks, sir. All right. Board is a component of the American Recovery Act, or ARP. we were awarded ESSER-3 monies. Our award was $8,852,388. With that, we are required to have semi-annual updates to you and the community about our plans to utilize those funds and how those are going. Funds will be available through September of 2024. Our original plan involved allocating $4.1 million to student learning loss, $1.6 million to staff retention, about $600,000 to mental health resources, and $2.5 million for technology availability and expansion. We did this based off of our own, as a district, our own input and feedback on what we thought were going to be the most pressing needs of our students in our district going forward to implement our safe return to in-person instruction, and also with a survey that we did of community stakeholders before we adopted this plan. Just going to give you an update on the finances of where we are. We've awarded 1,313 retention incentive stipends. That was to all staff last year. That was a one-time incentive for staff to return to us. We had 158 staff members receive stipends for accelerated instruction, so additional tutoring that was offered to our students to help them with any potential learning gaps. We also increased compensation for our substitutes. Those who completed more than 5 assignments in a month saw a $15 increase per assignment. When they got over 10 assignments in a month, that was a $30 increase off of our base subpay. We also brought in some professional training and development for our staff in implementing the professional learning communities, or PLC model. And we purchased additional resources for literacy, science, math, and social studies. To date, we've expended approximately $3.9 million, or 43.8% of our funds. That is a little bit higher for a 3-year grant period than we would, typically expect. You would expect a third. But given that 1.3 million of that was upfront for staff retentions, and we're hoping that we're addressing learning loss, and those will start tapering off over the next 2 years, we feel that we're right in line with where we should be, making good use of these funds. We anticipate expenditures slow down a little bit this coming year, again, due to the staff incentive and hopefully filling in some of those gaps. Next steps, we have posted on our website a survey seeking community input again. We would like feedback on how we are doing with our ESSER-3 plan, and if anybody has suggestions or modifications that they would like to see us implement into our ESSER-3 plan. It is posted. It will be there through August 26th. So we do ask for your feedback, any feedback from the community, any feedback from our teachers or students, if they would like to see us look at making some changes. We do have a standing ESSER-3 committee that is made up of district personnel who review all of our expenditures and look at our plan to make sure that we are doing what we said we were going to do and what the surveys tell us that we need to be doing. That committee meets as it needs to, generally about once a quarter or so, and we look at making changes if we need to. And then just from an overall housekeeping perspective, our next semi-annual update will be in January of 2023. So we'll bring some modifications to you as we see that they're necessary based on the feedback that we get from the community with our survey that's posted. So with that, are there any questions about our ESSER-3 plan?
Anyone? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Coleman. Okay, item C, informational report on summer maintenance projects. Thought y'all took the summer off.
What's that?
I thought you guys took the summer off.
Yeah. That doesn't seem to happen. Good evening, Board. Dr. Hollingsworth. I'm here to update you on the last 2 years of major projects that have been going on in the district. In the past, we've tried to do this each year, but with all that was going on last year before the school year started, we weren't able to accomplish an update for you for last year, so we'll be having that tonight as well. In the past, I or someone from support services has come to you in the school board times asking for approval of different things. And today I want to give you an update and show you some of the results of many projects that have gone on in the last couple of years. First one we're going to start off with are the flooring projects. As you can see, the flooring projects, this 2021 school year, basically we started these in spring break and we're finished. The goal was to finish August 1st. We were actually finished about 3 days before that. So this year we tackled 3 full schools, front to back, everything except the kitchen area, we put new flooring in. So those are Marvin, Shackelford, and Turner. Each of these had their own quirks and issues. We'll see some of that. Now, with that being said, through some savings, we were able to do a few other onesie-twosie rooms here and there that we'd seen problems with. Findlay, we had a problem with a room, flooring starting to come loose, so we were able to go in there and fix that. Wedgeworth, we had 2 rooms that had some leaking from the windows and it ruined the carpet, so we were able to go in and replace that. WHS had 1 room that had some issues with some carpet and doing some things that were going on in that room, so we did replace that. And then the Lumpkins training room, we replaced the rubber floor that was in there that EJ kind of felt it wasn't as sanitary as it could be in a training area, so we were able to replace that. With that being said, all of the material from those were left over or extra as we went through the project, so we didn't pay any extra money for the materials, so all we had to do is pay the labor. But we already had that in the budget. We had come to Ryan and said we can do it for this amount, and we were able to get it all in there. So with that being said, for this school year, we did 146,309 square feet of flooring in the district. The year before, we did Northside, 1 full school, 44,458. That did include some asbestos removal in 2 of the hallways there. So total for the last 2 years, we've done 190,767 square feet of flooring replaced in this district. That is quite an accomplishment to say. I'm not saying we're finished, but I'm saying we've accomplished quite a bit in 2 years for what's going on here in the district. And if at any time you have any questions, please ask. I'm going to show you a little bit about the flooring process. Everybody, I've had some people say, well, it's not too hard, just pull up and put down. In schools, it's not that easy. You can see some of these pictures. The one there in the second from the left in the top, the gentleman in the white shirt. Every floor is scraped with a scraper like that. After they pull the tile up, they'll scrape it like that. Every single floor. And then some of the campuses had to have, after we scraped it, we had to do it with another, what they call a grind away or scrape away there. Then you get into that one on the far right on the top. That picture you see there, the picture you also see on the far left on the bottom is the exact same location. That's what it looks like from 2 different ways. That was at Turner when we pulled the floor up. That's what came loose when we pulled it up. That tells you what we had underneath there. The next picture on the bottom left, that is also one of the hallways going into a classroom doorway. There was about 1.5 inches, I'm going to call a belly or low spot between the center of the hallway and the center of the classroom that we filled in with self-leveling in that area. Then the infamous pavers that we see in this district. There's a large hallway, or there was a large hallway at Turner, the STEM hallway that had it. You can see them there, the gentleman there in the orange taking them out by hand, and then the picture there in the right, you can see them when they're still scraping them up and all those kind of things. So we go a little bit further. After those that were scraped up, the tiles, they actually had to grind the grout away to get it all out. And they come in there and they'll set their self-float. They'll just do a little scrape away float, and then they glue. Then we start laying the flooring down. That flooring happens to be the hallway you see there. It happens to be the 300 hall of Shackelford. It was the first one we laid at Shackelford. So from all that you see, we go from the old to the new. So here's Turner. The pictures you see on the left, the far left, is the same picture you see in the middle, same hallway, everything, from the old hall to the new hall. And then you can see the STEM hallway with the pavers, and you can see the crack right there in that one picture. That's where that concrete had let loose. When we took it up, that's the picture I showed you earlier. And that is that same STEM hallway now. Here's Shackelford.
That's pretty awesome.
Same hallways, classroom to classroom, entryway to entryway. Remarkable differences. And then there's Marvin. So top little left one, that's the classroom. Those classrooms had about 3/4 carpet, 1/4 VCT in them. Now they're solid white or alabaster LVT. You can see the area there in the hallway, and you can see the area there in the corner. Those are exact picture. So you can exactly see what you're seeing. Everything we have done this year has been LVT. We have not put any VCT back in. That does save us in the long term on waxing and upkeep of the floors, because they're a non-wax floor. So it'll save us on that, save the wear and tear on the custodians moving furniture out, moving furniture in, those kind of things on them as well.
One thing I'll just say as an old principal, I was very concerned. They did this in the campus when I was high school principal, and we had carpet in the hallways, and they put down this LVT, and I was worried it was going to be really echoey, and it is not. It really absorbs a lot of sound, and we've found that in Waxahachie for sure, and so it just looks remarkably good.
And like I said, the school, those three schools will have a very new, fresh look to them, and it was a very collaborative work between the custodians, the grounds crew, the painters, and the flooring company, because a lot of these were getting painting done on the schools at the same time. The grounds crew were moving all the furniture out of classrooms into the cafeterias, moving them back into the classrooms so then we could move another hallway at all times. So it was a big work in progress. And like I said, we did these three schools in 60 days plus spring break. So it was a lot to do in 60 days. We worked, there was 6 days a week, every week for the summer. Then we go to painting. The last 2 years, the WISD painting department and painting crew has painted Marvin, Dunaway, Shackford common areas. So that is all hallways, gyms, cafeterias, those kind of things. Wedgeworth, we've done the entire campus, including classrooms, all common areas, everything. And then we've striped about 6 different parking lots. Then for outside contractors, number one is this boardroom. It was totally repainted, ceilings, everything. Looks very nice. Conference room next door had the same thing done to it. The Coleman common areas, mainly, we didn't do the library there, but we did all the hallways, all the cafeterias, those kind of things at Coleman this summer were done. They may be finishing up the last few little places, but there should be pretty much all done. And then the outside of Dunaway and Shackford were done 2 years ago. And those were by an outside contractor as well. So I'd like to, on that group, I'd really like to thank Arnold Martinez, which is our head painter, Juan Gonzalez, Juan Malagone, and this summer we had a summer help to help, and his name is Austin Reed. And they are actually doing the last little bit of touch up at Marvin, because Marvin got all of their trim work on all the doors and all that. It will now match a lot better than the light blue that was there. It is now all black, and it matches very well and looks very nice. AC replacement and new installs. So this year we had the Howard Gym area, we moved off of geothermal system this year and put it on a conventional system. With that being said, we were able to move 40 tons of AC off the geothermal system. And with that, and we found a leak in the cooling fields in Howard. With those two fixes right there, we were able to, the rest of that same loop, which feeds the small gym now and all of the athletic locker rooms, we were able to increase the temperature, and I'm saying on the chilling side of it, we were able to lower the temperature down in those 3 to 4 degrees. Doesn't seem a lot, but it is. It is a lot in those areas, and to hold it, that's the key thing there. We were not able to hold it in the past because of the large gym and try to cool it and everything else. It just wouldn't work. And so now we're able to do that, and it's, as of today, it is holding very well in those other areas. The coaches are very happy about what they're getting in their locker rooms and stuff that they weren't cool before, so it's helped them a lot. We've also put a new conventional unit on the library. It still is on the geothermal as well, but we put the conventional unit as an addition to that. And then the Howard Theater Arts, we did move it off of the geothermal system as well and put it on a conventional system. Replacements in the last 2 years. Wedgeworth, as you can see, we had 57 units in the Wedgeworth classrooms plus 1 unit administration suite. The Felty Library, the Findlay Administration Suite and Field House. Administration, we fixed 2 units here. And the Howard Kitchen is on slate to be finished hopefully by the end of August. Only thing we're waiting on that is for it to come in. That is out of our hands. the way it's scheduled right now to be, if it gets here in time, it will be finished before the end of August. But that is all we're waiting on, is it to come in. Then we're going to roofing projects. So the following buildings we've addressed in that full layovers on Findlay, Coleman, and the hangar, or I guess I'm saying the hangar of the old credit union. The partial replacements we have done is Shackelford, Dunaway, Cliff, Wedgeworth, which was the gym and the administration suite, and the global gym. Now, Wedgeworth is a shingled roof, so we basically replaced all the flat roof in that one. Shackelford and Dunaway are standing seam pitched roofs, the same thing. We did replace all their flat roofing there with TPO roofing. And then Cliff, we had a infamous waterfall that has been there for 8 years plus. We changed a little over a year ago, and as of this date, we have no more rain, no more leaking in that building in that area at all. In that area of that roof. We also fully replaced the old credit union. So with that being said, as of today, we've done about 4,380 squares, or 438,000 square feet of roofing as of today. We are hoping, the schedule is right now to start Marvin in early September, and that'll be another 755 squares, as they call it in the roofing industry, or it'll add another 755,000 square feet of roofing to be redone.
And Stephen, I think you told me this morning, the stuff, or what we see in that top picture, that's what we'll have at Marvin?
Correct. And
Similar-
that's what we've done on all of
similar-
it. It's a single ply layover, TPO layover. And so what that is that's the same area. It is from different directions, but it's the exact same area at Dunaway. That was Dunaway, the very first roof we did. And lastly, we're going to get to the landscaping. We've been updating landscaping where we can in fronts of buildings and things like that. With that being said, we've had some outside contractors help us on most of this, being Dunaway, Northside, administration, and part of Shackelford. Now, the nice thing about Shackelford, we paid for it with an outside contractor on some of it, and then Oasis came in, Pools and Outdoor Living came in and asked if they could do a little bit more in addition to, and they provided all the labor and all the plants and all that to do it, and they did it. It's made it look a lot nicer as well, in addition to. This summer, we did Findlay and Coleman Junior Highs. This is the picture you see right here, actually is Coleman Junior High. There used to sit about a 4-trunk cedar tree right there that was creating a lot of problems for the roofing, so we had to take it down anyway. So we took it down, then we just had to figure out when we're going to be able to get to it and spruce up that area. So we did come in and take it all out, clean it up, plant some plants in there. Some of the plants you have in there were things we moved from Findlay that there was too many of them in one area, so we transplanted them. When we put new stuff in Findlay, we reuse those. And those were all done this summer by the WISD grounds crew, those two buildings were. Anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Mott.
Great work. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank all your guys. Wow.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Item D under reports, informational report on technology devices. You again?
Board, I wanted to give you an update on an item that we tackled back in June. If you remember back in June, we asked you for authority to purchase up to $225,000 worth of technology equipment. At the time, we thought we'd be able to get about 385 devices. So that was about 135 teacher devices, 200 student devices, and 50 lab devices. We went back and got some revised pricing. There was a little bit of a debacle in there somewhere, and some tears may have been shed somewhere. But anyway, all that put aside, we got some updated revised pricing, and we were actually able to come back with 2 teacher devices so that we could offer our teachers some choice. So we have 2 different devices that we're going to offer our teaching staff, but the end result is we were able to secure 539 devices instead of the original 385, so 40% increase in devices by going back and pushing a little bit harder with our vendors to get some better pricing. The total came out to $224,439, so we still stayed under that $225,000 that you authorized. but wanted to give you an update that we were able to get a whole lot more devices that will be a majority of them in our students' hands as we go forward into the school year. And then just wanted to kind of show you the two options for our teaching staff. We're looking at a larger screened laptop on the right that has a embedded 10 key. So for those that are in that more traditional mode, that like the laptop with a little bit bigger screen to be able to see as they work on it, we have that option. Then we also on the left have a little bit smaller screen, but it's more functional with a tablet mode. So think of it as you can open it like a laptop, but the screen folds all the way back to make it more like a tablet. So anyway, trying to give our staff some choices so that they have the equipment that they think that they need in their classes to be most successful. So just wanted to give you an update on that purchase that you authorized 2 months ago.
Questions for Mr. Calden? Okay. Item E, informational report and update on schools of choice. Dr.
Good evening,
Binnicker.
Board, Dr. Hollingsworth. Just to give you a quick update on a couple of our schools of choice as we move into the start of school on Thursday. Marvin Biomedical Academy, the teachers over there have been working with Miss Abity and her team over the last couple of weeks. They've gone through a lot of training, about 24 hours of training they went through in 3 days to get those teachers really ready to start the school year over there. And so the top two things that I've listed on the left side of this list, the National Certificate for STEM Teaching through the National Institute for STEM Education is something that all of those teachers at that campus completed last school year up through May. Our pre-K teachers and any new to the campus teachers will start that training this year, and so we'll work with them and lead them through that training this school year. And then SAMR is something else that I'll talk about on the next slide here. And you can see the list of things that they've covered on this campus, all the way down to flexible seating, curriculum mapping. One of the pictures that Mr. Mott showed earlier, there was a classroom example there that had different types of chairs, flexible seating in those classrooms. So we didn't just put these things in the classroom, we worked with the teachers and taught them how to really use these things in the class. So it's not just a bouncy seat that a kid gets to sit on, there's a purpose for these chairs. And so the teachers can be strategic in how they place the kids in these chairs. So a student that needs to move a little bit more might get put in one of these seats that has some wiggle room. So on the left side are things that we'll go through with these teachers on this campus for the rest of the school year. So defined careers, defined STEM is something that comes with this program. So the students really learn about the biomedical careers that are available to them. And one of the ways they'll do that is through the use of technology in the classroom. So I put this SAMR model up here, and this is just an example using iPads. So I'll pick on reading right there, for example. So it's substituting what a classroom would do traditionally. So if I had a piece of paper and the students are reading from that piece of paper, substitution would be they're reading something electronic. And we move from left to right there. So redefinition means the students are reading an interactive book that has tabs or buttons they can click on in the book, and it changes that book, brings that book to life. So it really changes the flat world to a three-dimensional world. The students can really get involved in these careers in the Biomedical Academy there. The next thing I wanted to talk about is some of the great partnerships that Marvin has formed over the last few months. So the biggest one we know right here is Baylor Scott & White, our flagship partner for this academy here. The other ones, Remedy Church, Ellis County Master Gardeners, and the Oaks Church have been very involved in the last several months with these campus leaders, the teachers, getting involved in their classrooms, making sure they've got someone to partner with as they do activities in the classroom. Every classroom at Marvin has a partner from Baylor Scott & White that will work with them throughout the school year. And so that's just a huge partnership that we formed with them there, and we're really excited about that. Howard Junior High Dual Language, another innovative school choice program we've got this year. Moving up with our 6th grade students that will get to take the dual language program there. Starting off with 27 students in Miss Olmos's class. And the new logo here that we've got for Howard, I really like that. They've translated that, put that in Spanish, so we've got both versions for our students that are going there. And then I included the 6th grade schedule. I think I showed this a couple of months ago, but just how the students are going to transition. They'll have an English language arts and a Spanish language arts, as well as Spanish math, so that's something new for them this year. And then to make sure that our students have access to get to these campuses, here is our transportation hubs. This information was shared in the back to school toolkits. It's been posted on social media on both of these campus websites and then our district page as well. So we want to make sure that transportation was not a barrier to keep any student from attending these campuses that wanted to. That's all for me. Any questions?
Thank you for Dr. Binnicker.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay, last item on the reports, item F, informational report regarding safety and security.
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Hollingsworth, Board. It is my sincere pleasure to get to be here tonight and to speak on behalf of this district's efforts in combination with the Waxahachie Police Department's efforts to keep all of our students safe, all of our staff safe at all of our campuses. Ms. Timmerman read our core value of community. Nowhere is our value of community more visible, more entrenched than our relationship with the city of Waxahachie, more evident with us and the Waxahachie Police Department and the joint effort to make sure our campuses are safe. This summer, in the wake of the tragedy in Uvalde, Governor Abbott issued a joint letter to the TEA and the Texas School Safety Center to encourage all school districts to take action. The actions required by the governor are things that are already happening in Waxahachie ISD, things that have taken place in the previous school year and previous school years, but things we took seriously this summer. One, to ensure that our Safety and Security Committee met to discuss our emergency operations plan and address any campus safety needs. Not only did we meet at our regular meeting on June 15th, we met again on August 3rd to make sure we took care of all expectations, to make sure that all of our campuses are safe. Two, ensure that the school behavioral threat assessment team is trained and has reviewed procedures for each campus. Our teams had been trained prior to this school year, but we made sure we've taken steps to ensure that our campus members have also received additional training to make sure we're ready for the current 22-23 school year. Ensure that all staff and substitutes are trained on their specific district and campus safety procedures, and that all drills are scheduled before the start of the school year. We do training each year. We continue to have online training through vector training, and then Lieutenant Josh Oliver goes to every single campus to train in person with all of our staff and all of our incoming substitutes. And then for each campus, to review our visitor check-in procedures and assess our access control procedures regarding single access points, locked instruction room doors, and exterior door locks. We do this regularly each school year, but then this summer, to address the expectations of the state, we have done the targeted partial summer audit. That was coordinated by Josh Oliver, along with our security team led by Belvis Nolan, including Trey Marsh, Tim Oldfield, and James Southern, going to each campus, checking the exterior doors, and then also ensuring that our check-in procedures, our scheduling of drills, and our training are all current. We will continue those door checks each week throughout the school year and report those results to the state, and our Safety and Security Committee, our crisis management team, will be conducting our tri-annual audit this school year to analyze needs and bring back a report to the board at the end of this school year so that we can have a corrective action plan to make sure we're addressing all needs over the course of the next 3 years. But to give you better information so that you can feel safe and secure, and all of our parents watching, all of our staff watching, we have Lieutenant Josh Oliver, who will go forward and then tell you all of the things we're doing to make sure our camp's safe. Josh.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, one of the things I want to hit on that is really important coming out of Uvalde is the fact that it's really important to us that our classroom doors can be locked while there are students in those rooms. And that's one of the things our security team has been checking, and just as important is that our exterior doors to those campuses are working as they're supposed to. We've checked every exterior door in Waxahachie ISD, and every one of them is functioning how they're supposed to. We can lock every exterior door in Waxahachie ISD. Access control is something that we've been checking. We want single point of entry, and we've checked those, that we're in a good place with access control. One of the interesting things with all this list is the fact that when a school shooting comes out, the government comes out with recommendations of things that the school districts need to be doing in light of the active shooter situations. I have to say that the lists that we got after Uvalde happened, Waxahachie ISD was already doing these things because of the leadership of the people in this room that happened long before I got here. We have been on the right direction, and we're at a good direction. We have Tip 411. That's an anonymous reporting system. If our students, if our teachers, if our parents see something, they can say something. That's monitored by administrators, by myself, and we can work closely with the Waxahachie Police Department to investigate anything that's reported through that. We do drills and exercises. Our principals have been great about scheduling those and they're ready to go. Multi-hazard operations plan. I can't tell you how many times I go to training for SROs and they talk about how their emergency operations plan has been kicked back by the Texas School Safety Centers. Lee and the Safety Committee that put those operation plans together have done a fantastic job, and all of ours have been accepted. We continue to look at those, revamp them. Thomas Griffith with Emergency Management in the city of Waxahachie has gone through our emergency operations plans with a fine-tooth comb and has worked really hard to put those and give suggestions to those to make them better. Our standard response protocol. I'm going into all the schools. I've got a full day tomorrow and Wednesday to talk to the teachers about this is what we do during active shooter situations and when we need to secure the schools. We do training with the Duress app during that time. We have regular social media communication with parents. We have IDs. That's one of the things we're really enforcing this year is part of the lockdown is if the wrong person's on campus, that's when you lock down. The way we know if the wrong person is on campus is with IDs, the student IDs that they wear, the teacher's IDs that they wear, and that leads us right into substitutes. We've been working hard. I saw all the keys on Miss James's desk right before I came over here. We were implementing a system where they can be safe and have key access to the schools. They can check those out in the morning. They're going to have ID badges that allow them key card access. We want to keep our substitutes and the children, the students that they're in charge of safe. One of the big things going forward this year is our expectations of visitors. Before, when it was Grand Friends Day, we'd let anybody show up to that campus and let them right in. If it was Deer Day, we'd let anybody come read. And I think we were opening ourselves up to be vulnerable with bad guys out there. Going forward, every visitor must check in through our Raptor system. We have a way that they can pre-register and do that check ahead of time, but we're working with our campuses in order that all visitors check in and wear an identification sticker, and there's no exceptions to this. It's for the safety of the kids. If it isn't a Grand Friends Day and we have a visitor on campus, gone are the days that we put a sticker on their chest and let them roam free amongst the school. Our visitors will be escorted on campus, and we may even utilize metal detectors on those days. Going forward, we have a great foundation at Waxahachie ISD, and I have every confidence that on day one, this Thursday, that our kids are going to be safe. We can lock our classroom doors and we can lock our exterior doors. But that doesn't mean that we get complacent. Going forward, we will revisit, reinforce, and strengthen the practices that we already have in place. Do you have any questions for me?
I do.
Okay.
I think it's important for everybody to know that the trustees have to do the safety and security training too by the end of September. I just happened to do mine yesterday, and when I was reading over the material, I didn't see mention the bleeding control stations. Are we planning those? Are we going to have those?
We have stopped the bleed, and we have all of those plans in each campus's crisis management plan. So the crisis management plan that we approve as a committee goes to each campus. Each campus has that along with several other addenda. And so the stop the bleed information is something each campus has. They have the kits, and that's ultimately under the supervision of Melissa Bousquet, who's our Director of Health Services.
They mentioned to put them like on the wall next to the AEDs, make sure there's more than one in each school. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
I believe we have about 200 district-wide, so I can't tell you how many are on each exact campus. Like Ms. Harris might know something along the lines of high school, and Mr. Lynch would probably know global, but there are about 200 of those kits around the district.
It also said that all, and I don't know, maybe they already have been, that all students 7th through 12th grades will be trained annually on
Yes.
how to, and they've all been trained?
Yes.
Good.
Yes. That was, I believe, the 2019 legislature. So we've had a few years to get that prepared, and we've been able to get 7 through 12 trained.
The school behavior threat assessment team, is there going to be one? It said you could do it different ways, but will there be one for each school? Will there just be one for the entire district, or how are we going to set that up?
The board approved our team in 2020, and so the leadership is Jacob Perry, that's Director of Campus Student Services, and Ginger Robinson, Director of Counseling. And so we have a district-wide team. All of our district team members were trained during the 2021 school year. And then over the course of the past year, several of our campus leaders have been trained, and then this summer, Jacob Perry and Ginger Robinson have ensured that our campus leaders, that's going to be APs and counselors, have received their training before we start school.
Okay, because it mentions special ed people and teachers. Yeah.
So our district level team did have our former special ed director. Will amend our plan to include our new, by name, special ed director. But it's got Dr. Averett, Lisa Mott, myself, Josh Oliver, Belvis Nolan, along with, like I said, led by Ginger Robinson over counseling and Jacob Perry over the campus and student services.
Do you know how the kids reacted when they got trained to do that lead control?
I honestly don't know, but between Melissa Bousquet and Ginger Robinson, they ultimately oversaw ensuring we got training at the secondary campuses.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have just a quick question. How does staff have access to the crisis management plan? Is it in writing? Is it something they look at online, or how does that work?
No, the plan is kept by principals.
Okay,
At the campus level. So staff have access to the Duress app, so they can report anything that they see and have then the immediate attention of the entirety of Waxahachie Police Department along with their campus leadership. Now, of course, they can report to their campus leadership. In addition to the district crisis management team, each campus has a crisis management team, and that's going to be the principal, the assistant principal, security officer, and then whoever else the principal wants to add to that team. And so at each campus, you have held then the crisis management plan along with the physical layout of the campus itself, and then anyone that the principal essentially believes needs to have access in addition to that crisis management team that's on the campus would. But as far as teacher, paraprofessional, really their access is going to be the Duress app. That plan is confidential. And so if someone made a public information request for that plan, out of Chapter 37.108 of the Education Code, it's been deemed essentially critically important to the district that it remain confidential. The release of the specifics of that plan could jeopardize the safety and security of the district. So we limit the distribution of that plan to the campus leaders, and then whoever the campus leader then trusts to bring in to be a part of the team on their campus.
That's cool, thank you. I'm dating myself. I'm thinking about the crisis management plans from way back, like flip chart stuff.
Oh.
Everything that all staff had access to.
So in addition,
Yeah.
so the plan itself, that emergency operation plan is about little under 300 pages. As far as the go kits, absolutely, each teacher on the wall near their classroom door has a kit of helpful information that's from the Texas School Safety Center, originally published by the I Love You Guys Foundation, but adopted by the Texas School Safety Center, and that's our standard response protocol, our standard reunification method, which has all of our uniform language that we utilize in regard to the lockdowns and all of the various holds that we can put a campus under. They have that information near their door so that when let's say they have to do an evacuation drill because we're practicing, a fire a fire drill. And they take their kids out. They're gonna have their green cards, their red cards to identify if they've got all 22 kids assigned or if they're missing one or two, so that safety and security folks and campus leadership can go to them to ensure that if there's an issue, if they have a red card up, what's the reason and who are they missing? And that's a part of the campus training that Lieutenant Oliver does with each of the campuses here as we're starting school.
Thank
So
you.
forgive me, Ms. Darnay, I didn't know what you were asking.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm, like I said, just terminology. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to item 12, our consent agenda. We have items A through M. I have been asked to remove item F for individual presentation and discussion. So at this point, we will consider a motion for consent agenda items A through E and G through M.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCutcheon. Second. A second by Ms. Timmerman. Is there any discussion on consent agenda items A through E or G through M? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, consent agenda item F, consideration and possible approval of the 2022-2023 school year grading guidelines. Dr. Averett, was that you? Ms. Mott?
Dr. Avery, my question is about the change in the late work policy.
Correct.
And especially the student having up until 5 days before the end of the grading period to turn in a paper, and I just wondered the thought process behind that.
Thank you. Yes, and Board and Dr. Hollingsworth, I appreciate you asking that question. You know, one of the things we've been going through, obviously, since the spring semester is our work with the solution tree, and as our administrative team went to the solution tree conference down in San Antonio, we were I'd say moved by one of the presenters who talked about the procedure or the process of assigning a grade of a 0 when a paper is late. And in particular, he stated, he challenged us to show the research that supports that giving a student a 0 motivates them to do anything better. And then he followed that up pretty quickly and said, it's because it doesn't exist, there isn't any research that shows that does help. What we're looking to do and what we're hoping to do is get to students where they mastery of the content and looking for mastery of the content, not necessarily grading timeliness. However, there is this pretty specific, a large grading penalty if you don't turn your work in on time, because the maximum they can get is a 70 if they don't turn it in on time. But that gives them an additional time within the semester. We know that things happen, activities happen. We're dealing with adolescents, and sometimes, they don't take care of business like we want them to. But this, we believed after discussion with our principals and assistant principals, and we had a large group discussion about this at our administrative retreat. Our admin team actually discussed this prior to that, and that was a recommendation. We went through it again and again. I wanted to make sure I had the verbiage correct and what they wanted. And then we went through the process of, okay, because we understand that when you wait to take in a paper to grade it, that can cause a burden, particularly to the teachers who are grading those papers late. And I do understand that as a former teacher in the classroom and as a current college professor, I get it. We want things turned in on time. However, when we looked at that and we looked at the grading period, we did settle on the fact that we don't want it to be right before the grading period's over, because we understand that burden can be difficult to get over. So we wanted to give teachers enough time prior to the end of the grading period, but also give students enough time if they had an assignment that they needed to turn in to get their work in. I believe the training actually went through today, and I probably would ask Mr. Binnicker, or Dr. Binnicker, to kind of piggyback on this, but I believe Mr. Brown, who provided some of the training today to our folks from Solution Tree, kind of backed this this line of thinking up and what he was saying with, what are we looking at? Are we looking at mastering the content, or are we looking at turning something in on time to determine whether or not a student really understands what they're learning?
Dr. Everett?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess, I'm an old teacher too, so I have a student, the second week of the 6 weeks, they don't turn anything in for 2 or 3 papers, right? So that's gonna come out on their progress report. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it'll be averaged in as a 0. So
Yes.
that at that point, that will trigger hopefully in the student's mind that they need to get those papers in. Is that correct?
We hope so, yes.
Okay. I
It
just
also
wanted,
can help, it also would help that parent that monitors their grade via Skyward, that parents have family access to help them push their kid along at the same time.
yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So by and large, you think you have teacher support on that?
I feel like we do. I feel like we have a lot of our teachers that are doing this anyway. One of the ways that we look at whether or not students are going to progress from grade level to grade level is a couple of factors. Number one, are they failing their classes? Number two, are they coming to their classes? So attendance, that's why attendance is so critical. And in grades, on the other hand, for the most part, I think our teachers care deeply about whether or not their students are learning and they're getting the material. And having a high failure rate is not something that I don't believe any of our teachers want to brag about. In fact, I think they would do the opposite. They would see it as a personal, where they could help.
Reflection of them, yeah.
Yes, yes. I believe that's how our staff operates.
Thank you, Dr. Everett. That was my question.
Okay, at this time, I'll consider a motion to approve a consent agenda item F as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Starnader,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to action item A, consideration to approve TASB Board Policy Update 119 with changes affecting Waxahachie ISD Local Policy CPC, DMA, EHAA, EHB, EHBAA, EHBB, EIF, FFBA, and FFH. Did I forget any consonants or vowels in there?
You got all 9 of them, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President and Board. At your most recent meeting in July, we had our first review of TASB Update 119. This is the proposal for TASB to address all of the special sessions of the 2021 legislature. Tonight, we urge your approval of these 9 changes to local policy. The legal changes have all been circulated. We've made sure that we're in compliance with the legal. This is the local. We have no proposed changes for you, and ask for a motion to approve the local changes within Update 119.
Any questions for Mr. Alvin? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item A as presented.
I move to approve.
Motion by Ms. Starnader,
Second.
second by Mr. Rogers. All in favor, say, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Action item B, consideration to approve the resolution and agreement between Waxahachie ISD and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension 4-H as presented.
Thank you again, President Option and Board. This is pretty much an annual thing that we do with our Ag Extension Office. This allows our extension agents to serve as adjunct teachers, adjunct faculty. So when our students that participate in 4-H have to be absent from school due to showing their animal, for example, that those absences are considered excused absences. And that's what this resolution allows us to do. And I would ask if you would approve it, please.
Questions for Dr. Everett? Okay, motion to approve action item B as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCutcheon. Second by Ms. Timmerman. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. And our last action item tonight will be action item C, consideration and possible action to approve a contract with Book Note for high dosage reading tutoring.
High dosage reading tutoring, it's a, tongue twister. So last summer, we applied for a grant through the Texas COVID Learning Acceleration and Supports T-Class, as you know this. This was an area that we applied for last year. We received the funds for this. The timing wasn't correct by the time we actually got the funds from TEA to push this out last year, and so we pushed pause so we could roll it out this year with Fidelity. This will actually be virtual tutors that are working with our students in the classroom in a small ratio, so it's 1 tutor to 4 students. The tutors have come through the Vetted Texas Tutor Corps through TEA. So this is kind of flowing the money through to that program so we can give our students more of a high-impact reading tutoring program in the classroom with the support of someone on the other end of that computer. So our teachers are there to facilitate, and they've got a tutor in front of them on the device they'll use in the classroom. So that's what this request is for.
Questions for Dr. Benninger? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item C as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Timmerman. Second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0, and I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Kriegel, is there a second? Second by Mr. McCutcheon. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.
Be careful on those.